Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Stan was here and he should be back again soon.
Oh,
Since there was nobody here in person,
yeah.
I moved into my office from the chapel. But in order to do that, I had to shut down the meeting.
Okay. I
So,
wondered if something was wrong with mine.
no, and then it took me a couple of minutes to restart my computer for some reason.
Okay.
I don't understand why. But so let me let's see if Stan gets back. There you are. Okay, great.
Here we are.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so
Marsha. Hi, Marsha.
Hi. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
all right. I just since there was nobody here in person, I decided to move myself from the chapel to my office. It's a little bit more comfortable in here for me, and I think my connection is also a little bit better. So, all right. So we are starting. We're doing the first 3rd of Parashat Vayigash. And so we're coming in the middle of the Joseph story. The brothers are on their 2nd visit, and Benjamin has been sort of set up. The goblet is in his hand. What is that feedback? Stan, do you? I think it's coming from your computer, Stan. Do you? You know what? Let me mute you for a second and see what happens. Okay. Yeah, that's it. What's happening is that when I talk, it's being reverbed from your computer. But I muted you. Now I can't hear you. Hold on a second. Go ahead.
I selected video instead of not video. Stop video.
All right, talk now.
Did that help it, Eddie?
No.
No, because it's the audio that's the problem.
I wouldn't know how to fix it.
All right. I mean, it never happened from you before. Is your volume on higher than it was before?
Not particularly.
All right. So here's what I'm going to do. We can see you again. In fact, it would be good if we did see you. And I'm going to mute you. And then when you want to talk, stick up your hand. And then I'll unmute you when you can talk.
Let me. Where's my volume button? I just reduced my volume. Does that help?
Talk again.
No, reduce my volume. I can't hear you.
Yeah, it helped a little bit. No, it helped a lot actually, because I'm not hearing myself now from your computer, so it helped quite a bit.
Okay.
All right, great. So if you want to reconnect your video, that's fine.
No, I don't need to.
Okay, but we want to see you.
You can't see me?
No, we can't see you because you turned off your video.
Oh.
All we see is your name. Now we can see you.
Okay.
All right, great.
I'm getting so sophisticated at this.
Right. And so we're still getting like a little static when you talk, but before, like, your microphone was picking up me and we were getting static all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're good. All right. So basically we left the story in the middle. The brothers are at Joseph's house, but they don't know it's Joseph. And they have been really treated unkindly, to say the least. And now Judah has basically had it. And so he decides that he's going to speak up. Vayigash elav Yehuda v'yomer bi Adoni. And Judah approached him and said, "Please, my lord, Yedaberna avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni. Let your servant speak a word into my lord's ears. Va'al yecha apcha ba'avdecha, and let your wrath not be kindled against your servant. Ki chamocha kefaro, for you are like Pharaoh." Okay. So Rashi's first comment, Yidaber davar ba'oznei Adoni, yikansu dvarai ba'oznecha. Let my words enter your ears. I'm not sure exactly, frankly, what's the problem or that how that helps us, unless Rashi assumes that we're going to read this very, very literally. Speak something into my Lord's ears, like he's going to whisper to him or something. So Rashi clears that up. No, it just means I'm going to speak, and I hope that you will hear what I'm saying. Let not your wrath be kindled. From here you learn that he spoke to him harshly. In other words, Judah is going to speak harshly to Joseph. So he's kind of, he's kind of apologizing in advance, I guess. I guess, I don't know. I guess I do that sometimes if I'm going to be frank or I'm going to tell somebody something that they might not want to hear. So I might sort of apologize in advance, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, but that's what he's saying, right? Judah, it's like saying no offense, right? I mean, there's this idea that, if you say no offense, then whatever else you might say that's offensive, nobody can take offense, right? Because you said no offense, right? Okay, for you are like Pharaoh. Okay, so the simple meaning is you are as important in my eyes as the king. That's the pshat, right?
Okay.
But, hello? Umidrasho sofcha lilkot alav b'tzarat kamo shelaka paro al yedei zakanti sarah alayla achad she'achva. All right, so the Midrash says, you will be punished with sara'at, which we generally translate as leprosy, but we don't really know what it is. You will be punished with sarat because of him, because of Benjamin, just as Pharaoh was punished because of my great-grandmother Sarah for the one night that he detained her. Okay, so you're detaining Benjamin. Pharaoh detained my great-grandmother Sarah, and he was published with sarat for detaining her. It's interesting because I'm not sure whether there's a veiled hint of homosexuality here or not, right? Because obviously Pharaoh was punished not just for simply detaining Sarah, right? But he had taken her from Abraham, right? And why had he taken her from Abraham? Because Abraham says, oh, say you're my sister so that, they won't kill me on account of you. And so Pharaoh took Sarah with the intention of cohabiting with her, and he was stricken with sarat. And the rabbis explain that the reason that he was stricken with sarat was why? So that he couldn't be intimate with her, to save her virtue, right? So with, Rashi saying the Midrash here is that you're going to be punished with sarad for detaining Benjamin, just like Pharaoh was punished for detaining Sarah. I don't know whether he's hinting that that Judah thinks that Joseph, who he obviously doesn't know is Joseph, has like sexual intentions with Benjamin or not. I'm really not sure. But as we'll see going further, it's not impossible. All right, so another explanation, just as Pharaoh issues decrees and does not carry them out, makes promises and does not fulfill them, so do you. Now, is this the setting of an eye concerning which you said to set your eye upon him? Another explanation, for like you, so is Pharaoh. If you provoke me, I will kill you and your master. Okay, so here what he's saying is, you're like Pharaoh, I mean, because you're an agent of Pharaoh, right? And we have, right, a halachic principle, shlucho shel adam kamoto, that an emissary or an agent of a person is like the person. I think we have that in American law too, right? If you give somebody the power of agency, then
yeah.
right, then the acts that they take on your behalf legally are the same as if you had
Right.
taken them yourself, right? So,
Right.
so what he's saying is, if you push me too far, not only am I going to kill you, I'm also going to kill Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now they're going back. He's recounting the whole story and why he feels ill-treated. All right. My Lord asked his servants, have you a father or a brother? All right. So flip the page. My Lord asked his servant, from the beginning you came upon us with a pretext. Why did you have to ask all these questions? Were we looking to marry your daughter, or were you looking to marry our sister? Nevertheless, we said to my Lord, we did not conceal anything from you. Right? In other words, you asked us a bunch of questions, right, that really weren't necessary. They were not necessary. They were kind of highly personal, right? You're asking all about our family, right? We're not making a shidduch here.
Right.
We're not making a shidduch here, right? We don't want to marry your daughter. You don't want to marry our sister, right? We, from the beginning, we thought that these questions were out of line, right? But we answered them anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? We didn't want to conceal anything from you. You're accusing us of dishonesty. And if anything, we've been like way more honest than was even necessary. Okay. We said to my Lord, we have an old father and a young child of his old age. That's Benjamin. And his brother is dead, and he is left alone of his mother, and his father loves him. Okay. Now, Rashi points out that this is actually a lie.
Right. Yeah.
Well, of course,
They don't know it.
they don't know it's a lie. I mean, well, but they don't know that it's not a lie either. Right? I mean, they say, we have this, right? They say, is there anybody left at home? They say, well, we have this very young brother, and he had one full brother, but that full brother is dead. Right now, in point of fact, he's not dead because he's the one who's asking them all these questions, right? They obviously don't know that this is Joseph, and he could be dead, right? But the last they saw him, he was being taken down to be sold as a slave in Egypt. So they certainly have no reason to believe that he's dead, right? It's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility, but they have no reason to believe that he's dead, right? But why? Why did they say his brother is dead? Rashi says, because he was afraid that if we'll say to him that he is alive, they'll say, bring him to me, right? Right. In other words, now, I mean, the chronology here is a little bit messed up, right? Because, I mean, right, Judah is saying, we told you about Benjamin, right? And then you said, bring him to us. Now, right, if he had said, we have two brothers, right, I mean, then he was afraid that this guy, the prime minister of Egypt, would say, bring them both down, right? And he obviously can't bring them both down because Joseph has been sold into slavery,
Mhm.
right? So they can't bring both of them down. On the other hand, there's really no reason for Judah to suspect that that's what this prime minister would have told him, because he certainly didn't expect him to say, bring Benjamin down,
Yeah.
right? But on the other hand, if he said he was alive and they did then they'd be not necessarily caught in a lie per se, right? But he'd have to explain, well, we think he's alive. We think he's alive, but he was sold into slavery here in Egypt, so we don't really know where he is or what his fate is, right? So it was simply, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I do this sometimes. It's not even intentional deception. It's like, if I tell you the full truth, it's like way too complicated to explain.
Yeah.
So I'll just say he's dead, and hey, nobody's going to know the difference anyway. Right? But he did in fact lie, and Joseph knows that it was a lie.
Mhm.
All right. So now we get the grand revelation and the grand reunion. Joseph could not bear all those standing beside him. It's not a great translation. Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants. I think that's a better, right? Because it's not that he couldn't bear all these people around. It's just that he couldn't, he was having difficulty controlling himself, right, with all of the attendants around him, because he wants to reveal himself to his brothers, right? But he doesn't want this to take place in front of his whole retinue. So he cries out, take everybody away from me. And so there was no one left, that is to say, no one of his staff left, when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. All right. V'lo yachol Yosef lehitapek l'kol hanitzavim. All right. Joseph could not restrain himself in the presence of all his attendants. Lo haya yachol lizbol sheyehu mitzrim nitzavim alav v'shom'im she'echav mitbashim v'hoda o lahem. He could not bear that the Egyptians would stand beside him and hear his brothers being embarrassed when he would make himself known to them. Right? Any thoughts on this?
It's a family issue. He did not want it, he did not want to, do it with a full audience of the subordinates.
Right. And that makes sense, right, to me. But the issue that he didn't want the Egyptians to see his brother's embarrassment.
He also didn't want them to know he was a Hebrew.
That's the point.
Right. That, I think, is more.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
Right. Although, the minute that he says these are, he doesn't want who to know that he's a Hebrew. Wait, the Egyptians or his brothers?
It's a second. Well, he didn't want, the question is, did the Egyptians know that he was, well, they knew he was different.
Yeah, well, Pharaoh obviously knew.
Yeah.
Whether Joseph's staff knew, that's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer that. Okay. And he wept out loud, so the Egyptians heard, and the house of Pharaoh heard. Okay, Vayishma Beit Paro. Okay, top of page 3. Beito shel Paro, klomar avadav uvanei beito. the house of Pharaoh, namely his servants and the members of his household. The Ein ze lashon bayit mamash, ela kamo Beit Yisrael, Beit Yehuda. Okay. This does not literally mean a house, but it's like Beit Yisrael, the house of Israel, Beit Yehuda, the house of Judah. Mesnade in French. Again, Old French. I don't know Old French. I don't even know much New
No
French.
modern French either.
Yeah, but it's maison, right? Maison, right? I assume that maison could mean either the physical house or the household, right? I mean, we say that in most languages, right? We say that
Well, the house of, like, you'd say the house of a designer means a whole operation of the
right,
of that individual.
right. So, I mean, so Rashi's comment, is obvious and it makes sense, right? When he says the house of Pharaoh heard, don't think he means like the physical building heard, right? When he says the house of Pharaoh, it's using,
People.
right? The people, just like, the White House announced today that blah, 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 blah. Right?
Well, the White House can't announce.
Right. The White House didn't actually announce anything, right? It's a building. Buildings don't talk.
Right.
Right. The Pentagon announced it. No, the Pentagon is a building. It doesn't talk. Right. But I mean, obviously, we know that when they say on the news, the White House announced today, we're not thinking, oh my God, it's a talking building. Right? We understand that this is a figure of speech. Why Rashi thinks we need this explanation, I'm not quite sure. I'm honestly not sure. And if you have any thought or suggestion, then I'm happy to hear it. But it's not at all clear to me why. I mean, certainly this comment is not wrong, but I don't know why it's necessary.
I agree. It seems like it's logical.
Right.
The comment is not necessary, the commentary.
Right. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer him because they were startled by his presence. They were startled because of embarrassment. I don't know.
Embarrassment, shock.
Yeah, I think more shock than anything else. Right?
Right.
Niv halu mipanav. All right. So the Eitz Chaim translation, instead of saying startled, it says dumbfounded.
Dumbfounded.
Okay, which is probably a better.
I think that's a better word.
Yeah, it's a better word.
But still.
Especially if you assume that Rashi's comment here is correct, right? Because you're not startled by embarrassment, but you could be dumbfounded by embarrassment.
Right.
You're so embarrassed that you can't even talk.
Yeah, I have. It's an art scroll for my tikkun, and they use the word. The translation uses the word disconcerted. I think dumbfounded is
right. Dumbfounded is probably the best English translation. Okay. So Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer to me. And they drew closer. And he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Please come closer. He saw them drawing backwards. Okay, so he said, now my brothers are embarrassed. Kara lahem b'lashon rakah, he called to them softly, pleadingly. V'hara lahem shehu mahul, showed them that he was circumcised. Now, I don't, again, when they're backing away, I don't think they're personally, I don't think they're backing away because they're embarrassed, right? I think they're backing away because they're scared.
Right. They have every reason to be
And
scared.
they have every reason to be scared, right?
I agree.
Right? So Joseph shows them that he was circumcised. All right, because the Egyptians did not practice circumcision, right? But it's interesting, right? I mean, there's all these jokes about, somebody saying they're Jewish and people don't believe him, so well, prove it, and they drop their pants or something, right? Which, I mean, doesn't work in contemporary American society because 80% of American males are circumcised, although that is rapidly changing, right? And it is even now the case that even committed Jews sometimes don't want to circumcise their sons, let alone people who are not so Jewishly committed. But even so, Muslims also circumcise. So, the fact of being circumcised wouldn't necessarily be definitive proof that you were Jewish, even if society in general turns against circumcision, because you still have a lot of Muslims in our society, right? But he, they don't believe that it's him, so he shows them that he's circumcised, right? And that's where I go back to Rashi's earlier comment about Sara'at for detaining Benjamin, as possibly hinting at some sort of homoerotic thing going on here. Only because it strikes me that that's not normal behavior, right? To show them that he was circumcised.
I wouldn't think so.
No, I wouldn't think so either. But, especially since, he's speaking to them in Hebrew now, right? And there probably aren't that. And presumably, he looks like Joseph, right? They say the clothes make the man, right? But, unless he's had plastic surgery or something, it doesn't, so maybe he was wearing a veil or a mask or something like that, right? And it says, it says earlier, not in a section we read, that, even though obviously Joseph knew Hebrew, he used an interpreter, right? And that makes sense because he doesn't want to reveal himself to his brothers at that point, right? It also makes sense. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where people are speaking a language in your presence that you understand, but they assume that you do not understand it. But I've had that experience. I've had that experience, many times in my life, either with Israelis or with Spanish speakers, who assume that I don't know their language. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I had an uncle who was an attorney in New York, who spoke Hebrew, but you would never gather from anything about him that he knew Hebrew. His family, I don't know whether he changed his name or, his father or grandfather changed the family name, but he did not have a name that would indicate that he was Jewish. And he wasn't particularly observant, whatever. And so he was trying a case where the other side were Israelis. And he went into the bathroom, and they were in the bathroom, and they were talking to each other in Hebrew, and he overheard everything that they said. So when they were leaving the bathroom, he just said to them in Hebrew, it's a lovely day today, or something like that. And the litigants from the other side, their faces went white. And they quickly offered to settle the case.
Things can happen.
What?
I said things can happen.
Absolutely.
Got to be careful.
And Israelis, by the way, are notorious for that. Their assumption that Hebrew is this sort of secret code that if they don't know you, you can't possibly understand it. But at any rate, so I think, it must have been fun for Joseph to kind of be able to listen to his brothers speaking one to the other without them knowing that he understood. Right. All right. And now you did not send me here, but God. Right. And he made me a father to Pharaoh, a lord over all his household, and a ruler over the entire land of Egypt. Right. So don't beat yourself up. Right. This wasn't your doing, it was God's doing. Right. And he has made me Av LePharaoh, a father to Pharaoh. Okay, so that is a little bit unusual, right? I mean, anytime I read it, it's unusual. You're right, he's made me a father to Pharaoh, so that's kind of weird. So Rashi says father means chaver, which we usually understand as friend, but chaver also means colleague. Okay, so I think the translation of chaver as colleague is a good one, and protector. But look at the Hebrew word for protector there.
Protector.
All right, it's the very last line on page 3.
Okay.
Right? You see the Rashi la'av, right? And then it's chaver, what?
Chaver.
Patron.
No.
Patron.
Right? Patron. Right now, I don't know. I honestly don't know whether this is Rashi being French or whether patron somehow worked its way into rabbinic Hebrew. Right? I mean, there aren't a lot. There's a lot of Greek loanwords in rabbinic Hebrew, right? There's not a lot of Latin loanwords in rabbinic Hebrew, but certainly there should be some, because the rabbis were certainly in contact with people who spoke Latin.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And patron would be possibly a term that they were familiar with. I just, I pointed it out because it's another example of a loan word that I find interesting. But like I said, I don't know whether this is rabbinic Hebrew or French. Frankly, I mean, usually when Rashi is using something from French, he tells us that it's French. So it's probably rabbinic Hebrew, but I don't know enough rabbinic literature to be able to say that for sure. Okay. So hasten and go up to my father on page 4. Right, go up to my father. Eretz Israel Gavoa Mikol Ha'artzot. The land of Israel is higher than all other lands. Right? So that's what Rashi is pointing out. He says, go up to my father. Why does he say go up? Right? I mean, is it necessarily the case that it's uphill from Egypt to Israel? Right? But we know this term, right? I mean, when somebody moves to Israel, when somebody immigrates to Israel, what's the term we use?
Aliyah.
Right? Aliyah. They make aliyah. They go up. Right? So I don't know that he's necessarily making a geographical statement so much as more a spiritual statement that Israel is considered higher than all other lands. Okay. Behold, your eyes see, as well as the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth speaking to you. Okay? You see my glory, and you see that I am your brother, because I'm circumcised just like you. And also, it is my mouth that is speaking, because I'm speaking Hebrew, right? I'm speaking the holy tongue, right? So, they're still perhaps a little unclear whether this is really Joseph, right? Because it does seem, I mean, on the one hand, it seems kind of improbable, right? That, we sold him as a slave, and now he's the prime minister of Egypt, right? So it does kind of seem improbable, but on the other hand, lots of improbable things have happened to them all along so far, right? But he's trying to convince them that it's really him. So he says, your eyes can see, right? Your eyes can see that it is my mouth speaking to you. Well, what does it mean that, what do the eyes see? The eyes, you can see that I'm circumcised, right? And you hear that I'm speaking Hebrew, right? So, as improbable as you may think this is, it's the truth, because I'm speaking Hebrew, right? And there ain't that many Hebrew speakers here in Egypt, right? And why does he say your eyes can see and the eyes of my brother Benjamin? So the Eitz Chaim commentary says, you can see for yourself and my brother Benjamin for himself that it is indeed I who am speaking to you. Right? Now, so the question is, so what's the question that Rashi is going to ask here? Right? Why does he mention Benjamin? Right? Why does he, right? I mean, if I'm speaking, imagine that there's 4 or 5 people in this class tonight instead of just the 2 of you plus me. Right? Would it make sense for me to say, you all here, as does Stan? Right? I mean, Stan is part of the you all. Right? So Benjamin is standing there. Right? So why does he say, you all here, as does my brother Benjamin?
Well, Benjamin, just reading it, Benjamin wasn't part of the crew that sold him.
Exactly. No, exactly. I mean, Benjamin is part of the group. Part of the group of the brothers, obviously, but he's not part of the group that bears responsibility for him being sold into slavery, right? Which is exactly what Rashi says. He compared them all together, saying, just as I harbor no hatred against my brother Benjamin, for he did not participate in selling me, neither do I have any hatred in my heart against you. Okay. So now I skipped a few verses. Now the brothers are now back in Egypt, telling Jacob this whole story and why Jacob should go down to Egypt. Okay? V'yidabru elav ekol divrei Yosef asher diber alehem. So they spoke to him all the words of Joseph which he had spoken to them. Vayar et ha'agalot, and he saw the wagons asher shalach Yosef l'setoto, which Joseph had sent to carry him. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avihem, and the spirit of Jacob their father was revived. Okay. Now Rashi's comment. I'm going to do the second comment first because it's simpler. Okay? The spirit of Jacob was revived. The Shekhinah, which had separated him from him because of his grief, rested upon him once again. Okay? So here, I mean, normally when we read his spirit revived, it's almost like he was dead and now he's come back to life, right? But that's not what happened. He was alive, but the spirit had departed from him. In other words, the Shekhinah had departed from him because of his grief. It's interesting, right, that apparently the Shekhinah cannot dwell upon a person who's in excessive grief. But now he's happy again, and the Shekinah returned to him. Now, all of Joseph's words. This is a little complicated. Okay, Joseph gave them a sign in what topic he was engaged when he separated from him. Okay, Siman Masar Lahem b'mahaya osek kashe piresh mimenu. Okay, so Jacob is going to be in doubt whether they're telling him the story, whether they're lying to him or not, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because if the story about Joseph is really true, then he retroactively comes to understand that they've been lying to him for the last X number of years.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah,
either they're lying now or they were lying before. Right? So Joseph says, when you get back to Israel and tell Dad that I'm alive, remind him that the last time I saw him, this is what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it's a good way. I mean, especially these days with, scams that happen, like, somebody gets control of your Facebook account or of your email or something. And it doesn't happen that often, but I've certainly gotten messages from people who say, I'm in the Philippines, my wallet and my passport have been stolen. I need money to replace my passport and to buy a new plane ticket and blah, 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 blah. Right? And so I have actually gone along with these schemes up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've said, and I've gotten the person all excited. And then I said, but wait a second. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't trust you, but remind me how we know each other or something like that, right? Because especially Facebook, you have a lot of Facebook friends who you barely even really know.
Yeah.
Right? So, we were right. And if they don't know that, then, aside from the fact that nobody's going to be asking me for money from the Philippines, but so this is a good way of them, of Jacob verifying that it's really Joseph, right? Because how would the brothers know what was the last topic of conversation between Joseph and Jacob. There's no way they weren't there, right? They weren't there. They were out, with the sheep. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Joseph was a spy.
what?
He was sent by. That's when Joseph was sent by his father to go check on his brothers.
Check on his brothers, right? So they were talking about the heifer that was to be beheaded. Okay, now if you're only looking at the English translation, you're saying, what the heck? Right? Because I don't know, do you know, it's called Egla Arufah. Do you know anything about the Egla Arufah? No. Okay.
No.
All right. So if a body is found in the field, a body is
Halfway.
found. What? A body
Midway between two cities?
Midway between two cities, right? So they measure out and figure out which is the closest city. And then the elders of that city have to go through this expiatory ceremony, as part of which they behead a calf. Okay, and that's the Egla Arufah. Okay, but here's what's interesting. Okay, the word for a calf is Egla. The word for a wagon is Agala. Okay, the consonants are the same. Right? It's only the vowels that are different. Okay, so when it says that he saw the agalot, right? He's making a pun between agala and egla. Okay, so whether the agalot themselves are a visual pun, or whether Rashi is saying the agalot are not really agalot, they're really talking about the Egla Arufah, I don't know. All right, but the point is that he's making a pun on agala and egla. Okay, right? So in other words, according to Rashi, what was happening? The last thing Jacob and Joseph were doing together was they were learning Talmud. Right? They were learning Talmud together, and they were learning about the Egla Arufah. Now, if you want to say, well, it doesn't say Talmud, well, okay, but the Egla Arufah is in Deuteronomy. Right? And Deuteronomy, this is hundreds of years before Deuteronomy. Right? But of course, as we know, right, the patriarchs knew the whole Torah. Right? We discussed that before. Right? So the fact that Jacob and Joseph are engaging in learned Talmudic disputation about a law that will not be given for several hundred years yet is not a problem for Rashi. Right? But right? And so it's strengthened for Rashi by saying Joseph sent the agalot, right? It's not Pharaoh that sent the agalot. And you would assume that it would be Pharaoh, because Pharaoh was the one who said, oh yeah, go get your father and bring everybody down and send the provisions and all, right? So, so there's a secret code, right? If dad says, well, right, because either way there's been a lie, right? Either they're lying now or they were lying back then. Right, so to prove that they're not lying now, Joseph gives them a siman, right? A sign, a code word, sort of, right? Which is interesting because we learned a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Rachel and Leah, right, who were after all both married to Jacob, right? That Jacob was worried that Lavan would do exactly what Lavan would do, right?
Mhm.
So he set up a code word between himself and Rachel so that he would know that it was really Rachel, not Leah. But then Rachel, not
Right.
wanting Leah to be embarrassed, right, gave Leah the code word too. Right? So this practice of code words is something that Jacob already knows. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Marcia.
Goodbye.